that slavery was actually justified by the words and doctrines of the Bible. According to Jefferson Davis, who was President of the Confederate States of America, slavery was established by decree of Almighty God. It is sanctioned in the Bible, in both Testaments, from Genesis to Revelation. T has existed in all ages, has been found among the people of the highest civilization, and in nations of the highest proficiency in the arts. Religious leaders like Richard Furman, who was a Baptist leader and president of the South Carolina Baptist Convention, would support this stance, arguing that the right of holding slaves is clearly established in the Holy Scriptures, both by precept and example. Catholic bishops in America were no different about slavery. Two slaveholding states, Maryland and Louisiana, had large contingents of Catholic residents, but never spoke against the institution. The Archbishop of Baltimore, Maryland, John Carroll, had two black servants, one free and the other a slave. Even the Society of Jesus in Maryland owned slaves who worked on their farms. The Jesuits began selling off their slaves in 1837, and without these funds, Georgetown University would not exist today. As Catholics only started to become a significant part of the U.S. population in the 1840s, with the arrival of poor Irish and Southern Italian immigrants who congregated in urban environments, the overwhelming majority of slave owners in the U.S. were white Protestants, the elite. In 1839, Pope Gregory XVI issued the bull in Supremo Apostolatus, which seemed like he was condemning the slavery. However, this was refuted by Bishop John England of Charleston. He wrote several letters to President Martin Van Buren, Secretary of State, explaining that the Pope, in Supremo, did not condemn slavery but only the slave trade, the buying and selling of slaves, not the owning of them, and no pope had ever condemned domestic slavery as it had existed in the United States. As a result of this interpretation, no American bishop spoke out in favor of abolition or against slavery. Despite its professed commitment to the teachings of love, compassion, and justice, the Church's response to slavery was disappointingly lackluster, if not outright complicit. Historians have postulated many reasons why the Church supported the inhumane treatment of other people just because of the color of their skin. One of these reasons was the economic impact of slavery. Slavery was deeply entrenched in the economic fabric of many colonial societies. Plantation owners and merchants relied on enslaved labor to amass wealth, and the Church, as an institution, often benefited from these economic ties through donations, grants, and even ownership of slave labor. Another reason was that many religious leaders falsely believed that slavery was endorsed and supported by the Bible. Some theologians and religious leaders attempted to justify slavery by selectively interpreting biblical passages to support their claims. They often cited verses that seemed to condone slavery or viewed Africans as descendants of Ham, cursed by Noah, as a theological validation for their subjugation. The story of Ham can be found in the book of Genesis, where Noah curses his son Ham's descendants to be slaves. Although there is no biblical evidence that Ham was the father of African peoples, various Jewish, Christian, and Islamic writers came to believe that he was, and their association helped to justify centuries of African enslavement. In the Bible, Ham finds Noah drunk and naked in Noah's tent. He tells his brothers, Shem and Japheth, who proceed to cover their father without gazing at him. When Noah finds out what happened, he curses Ham's son Canaan, saying he shall be a servant of servants. In 18th and 19th century Euro-America, Genesis chapter 9 verses 18 to 27 became the curse of Ham, a foundation myth for collective degradation, conventionally trotted out as God's reason for condemning generations of dark-skinned peoples from Africa to slavery. Similarly, some in the Latter-day Saint movement used the curse of Ham to prevent the ordination of black men to its priesthood. Moreover, in the New Testament, Paul's letters have been cited to endorse the notion of slavery. Ephesians chapter 6 verses 5 states, "Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ." This passage, among others, was taken out of context and exploited by slaveholders to assert their authority and religiously sanctioned control over enslaved individuals. Another reason why the Church supported racism and slavery was due to the fear of disruption. The Church was cautious about challenging the status quo for fear of destabilizing societies built on the institution of slavery. Many religious leaders feared backlash or unrest if they openly opposed the prevailing system. This was quite common in the United States. In 1837, Southerners in the Presbyterian denomination joined forces with conservative Northerners to drive the anti-slavery New School Presbyterians out of the denomination. In 1844, the Methodist Episcopal Church split into northern and southern wings over the issue of slavery. In 1845, the Baptists in the South formed the Southern Baptist Convention due to disputes with Northern Baptists over slavery and missions. Some members of fringe Christian groups like the Christian Identity Movement, the Ku Klux Klan, an organization which is dedicated to the empowerment of the white race, and Aryan nations still argue that slavery is justified by Christian doctrine. The Church's failure to speak out against slavery remains a stain on its historical record.